All right, Parshas Terumah. A few things to point out. First and foremost, we have doubles in the Torah. We have Parshas Terumah Tetzava, which is the plans for the Mishkan, this week's Parsha. Next week's Parsha, the plans for the Big Day Kahuna, and a few other odds and ends that weren't fully discussed in Parshas Terumah. Two is there's even a little bit left over in Parshas Kisisa, the Kior. And but then comes Parshas Vayakov Pekude. The whole thing is repeated verbatim. And Am Yisrael did it, and but it mentions the dimensions. It mentions everything. Though just it's a different context that, in Terumah Tetzaveh, it's like this is how they should do it. But in Vayakov said this is how they built it, because it's talking about them doing it, but it's repeated verbatim. Right? So it's like almost like superfluous. Why does the Torah have to repeat in Vayakov Pekude all the measurements, and they made it like this and they made it like that, and it repeats all the descriptions they have in Terumah Tetzaveh. Huh? So one of these sets of parshas is extra. So that's one thing to understand. Okay, another thing to understand is that as the Parsha opens up this week, the bulk of Meleches HaMishkan, was done b'nedivus leiv. Kol isha sheidvenu libo tikhu es trumasi. That Kadosh Baruch Hu said, everyone will give by benevolence of heart. All the raw materials. The raw materials came by benevolence. Then there was a tax for the Adonim, which then became the regular Machzis HaShekel tax for the Korbanos, and it was a special Machzis HaShekel tax for the Adonim. That was like an aspect of the Mishkan, one thing that everyone had to cough up, the same amount, Machzis HaShekel, for the Adonim. Right? But otherwise, the rest of the Mishkan was all b'nedivus leiv. Now, that's amazing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was taking a chance, seemingly. The Mishkan may never be built. Hey, give whatever you want to give. Give until it hurts. So Bishul Machzis HaShekel, you got to give, right? The question is why everyone has to give the exact same thing. We'll discuss that when we get there. But by the resources from Meleches HaMishkan, everyone just gave what they wanted to give. Why? That's dangerous. It may not ever get built. Baruch Hashem it did, but why was that? Why is it that the bulk of Meleches HaMishkan was left up to Nedivus Leiv? One could ask it like this, even though it's not such a kasha, because we know that there's a general mitzvah on Klal Yisrael, Vasuli Mikdash Shechanti B'Socham, pasuk in this week's parsha. Right? There's but would it not have been in the spirit of Gadol HaMitzvah V'Oiseh, right, to also give us a particular directive, not just a general directive, and everyone will participate as they want, but everyone should, let's say, give. Let's say, like Machzis HaShekel. Right, would it not also be in the spirit of that which we say, Gadol Mitzvah V'Oiseh, making it a chiyuv on every individual as opposed to being a chiyuv on the klal? There's, the mitzvah to build the Mishkan is, it's not any one particular thing, and it remains that way. It's not one particular individual, to say. Right, and it remains that way in the sense that everyone gave b'nedivus leiv. Participate any way you want. Would not be in the more of the spirit of Gadol Mitzvah V'Oiseh to make it a chiyuv on the individual, and like similar to Machzis HaShekel. Everyone's got to give. Right? Obviously, the Torah didn't want that. Right? So we have to understand that. So now the
there were limitations, right, to the Nedivus Leiv. You couldn't give all of it if you it would reject it. No.
You ask like this: one they had to have a donor for the whole Mishkan.
The whole Mishkan.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Right.
It had to be participation by everybody.
Well, yes, correct. But it's not. But no one was told what to give. Anyway, there's a Gemara in Brachas, Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph. Now we know Kodesh Baruch Hu took the, appointed Betzalel the architect of the Mishkan. So Amr of Yenison, Betzalel Shem Chochmaso Nikra. He was called Betzalel, alluding to his wisdom, and how Betzalel alludes to wisdom. Get to in a second. What was the wisdom? God told Moshe Rabbeinu, tell Betzalel, make me a Mishkan. Right, that's the actual tent. Aron and Caleb. Right, in that order. Moshe Rabbeinu went and switched the order. One below, and told Betzalel like this: Asay Aron v'Kalem v'Mishkan. I want you to make an Aron and Kalem and then the Mishkan. Amalei Moshe Rabbeinu. So Betzalel said, Moshe Rabbeinu, hey, minhago shel olam, the way of the world is Adam boneh bayis hakach machnis l'tocho Kalem. You first build a house and then you fill it with with the vessels, right? You're telling me no, first make the Aron, which is Kli, and the other Kalim, and only then to make the Mishkan. Kalim shani oisel hechan achnisam. The Kalim that I'm making, where I'm going to put them. Shema kachom el chakoshu. Perhaps me have Kosh Baruch Hu told you. All right, asem Mishkan Aron v'Kalim. Amalo, so Moshe Rabbeinu told him, Shem B'tzel Kel Yisam. Maybe you were in the shadow of God. You must have been in the shadow of God. Hayisa, v'yadata, and that's how you knew. You must have been in the shadow of God, because that's taka what God said. Right? Nice Gemara? Shocking. Shocking. The Gemara is shocking. Why? Ya'ala ala das, that Moshe Rabbeinu either b'shogeg and koshkein b'mezid would say something that God didn't tell him. No. All right. So the Gemara opens up. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, make a Mishkan, Aron, and Kalim. Like the way Betzalel figured out. And he went, he was hofech the seder. Chas v'shalom. All right, if you would imagine that, that means we have no guarantee that our Torah is true. If Moshe Rabbeinu could either misunderstand, or God forbid, Moshe Rabbeinu could, had free will to distort. Right? How could it be? That Moshe Rabbeinu said something that Rebbe Shem didn't actually say, and Betzalel, figures it out. But of course, the shocking part is that Moshe Rabbeinu should say something other than what God said. Right? But the whole thing is not true. Right? As we read in this week's parsha. Parshas Terumah. What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say when he gives over the plans of the Mishkan? It says like this: after telling bring the Terumah, everyone should give the donations. And after saying all the stuff that needs to be donated, a list of resources, and Vasuli Mikdash, now make the Beis Mikdash. Right. So what's the order? Va'asu Aron atzei shitim. Make an Aron. Right? That's how it starts. First tzivui is to make the Aron. And then, after the Aron, describing the kaparos with the kruvim, the shulchan. After that, with all the shulchan and all its accessories, the menorah is the next thing. Right. And after the menorah, then Vesa Mishkan Tatzah. Now let's talk about the tent. It'll be 10, yirios, 10 sheets. That's exactly the way God told it to Moshe. Aron, Kalim, Mishkan. Moshe didn't invert anything. That's how it's written in Parshas Terumah. What's the Gemara talking about? It's exactly the way it's written. But, interestingly enough, as we said, Terumah and Tetzaveh is repeated in Vayakol Pekudei when they actually did build it. There is a very big difference. Even though the description of the Kalim, what their dimensions were and what the plans were, is verbatim, like we said, but the order is different. Taka. Parshas Vayakol. So Moshe Rabbeinu is gathering people and telling them over what he learned from God when he was in Shamayim, about how to build the Mishkan, right? Directive of Mishkan. So the Lashon of the Pasuk, he first tells them the mitzvah of Shabbos, and then, right, Chu mitchem truma l'Hashem, telling them, okay, let's have these donations that God spoke about in Parshas Terumah. Let's say, on the Zav, the Kesef, and the Choshes, the whole business, right? And after that, what are we going to make? Es HaMishkan, Es Olo, Es Mechseil. We're going to make the Mishkan. Es HaOron, Es Badav, then we're going to make the Oron. And then the Shulchan, and the Menorah, right? And then the Mizbach HaOlah, right? So, an amazing thing that when explaining it to the people, Moshe Rabbeinu actually inverts the order, other than the way it's written in Parshas Terumah, and says it, Mishkan, Aron and Kalim. Right? And that's also when the Psukim start talking about their actual execution of it, the actual execution of building the Mishkan. They first built the tent, right? And then after the tent, it's all described how they made the tent with all these specifications that we learned about, in the Parshas Terumah Tetzaveh, and then Vayasar B'Tzalos Ha'oron, and then after that he makes the rest of the Kalim. So the amazing thing, it's a machlokes, Parshas Terumah Tetzaveh versus Parshas Vayakol, right? Whether it's Aron, Kalim, Mishkan, that's ways in Parshas Terumah, right? And in Vayakol, it's Mishkan, Aron, and Kalim.
Is it after speaking to B'Tzalel?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. But we see that both ways made it into the Bible. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu did not invert anything. It's the way it's taka written, Parshas Terumah. Aron, first the Aron, then the other Kalim, then make the whole tent. Right? In Parshas Vayakol, the way it's explained to the people, and the way they actually execute the building afterwards is Mishkan, Aron, Kalim. So what's going on? The Torah itself, says it both ways. And there's all right, to understand all this, the Pasuk says, Shir Shirim, Ani Yeshena v'li bi'er. I'm asleep but my heart is awake, which is obvious because your heart will go to sleep also you die. Right? But Chazal have a lot of drushes on this Pasuk. And these drushes are actually in this week's parsha, the Medrash in this week's parsha. Right? Ani Yeshena, refers to Am Yisrael, all the different averos that they did. But V'li Bi'er, right? My heart is still awake. They still have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's called Tzur Levavi, the rock of my heart. That's the Li Bi'er. Right? And there's like the drushes on this pasuk, Ani Yeshena V'li Bi'er, all rotate on this axis. They're all different variations on this idea that sometimes we do bad, and that's called Ani Yeshena, but Li Bi'er, but the heart is still awake. Right? So that refers to how Am Yisrael still has a certain dveikus in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then the Medrash finally says, and that's how it stells it to the Parshas Terumah. Right? It says, Ani Yeshena from the Maisa Egel, Cheda Egel. But V'li Bi'er, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is meratek alei, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is yearning for me. He's calling me and says, V'ikhu truma kol ish asher yidveno libo tikos trumasi. The benevolence of the heart. Even though we did the sin of the golden calf, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu still is calling to us to build the Mishkan, and that's V'li Bi'er. Why it's called V'li Bi'er? Because Kol Ish Asher Yidveno Libo Tikos Trumasi. Because it was all done by the benevolence of the heart.
So what? But the fact that these people have Yidveno Libo, they will get a better connection with the Baruch Hu.
Well, we have to discuss that. It's a medrash, and we have to decipher this medrash. Right? The pasuk says, right, before we get into whole amkus of this, right, the pasuk says, right, by Matan Torah, because as the medrash says in this week's parasha, it's also medrash in this week's parasha, that the whole mitzias of the Mishkan is a product of Matan Torah. The medrash gives a mashal. A king had a daughter, and he married her off, and then the guy, so he tells the prince that he married her off to, listen, I can't tell you not to take my daughter because she's your wife, but I can't live without her either. So wherever you go, make a asuli kiton echad v'adur betocha. Give me a little room, and I'm going to live with you. I should have my room wherever you live, so I could come and visit. That's also HaKadosh Baruch Hu says I can't live without the Torah. Right? I gave you the Torah. I can't tell you not to take it. Right? So, but I can't live without the Torah either. So says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, since I can't live without the Torah either, you got to make me a guest house, make me a Mishkan. Right? And then there's a Ramban in this week's parasha that says all the halachas of how to be in awe and fear of the Mishkan, parallel the halachas that were by Har Sinai, the Hagbala, Vigbaltem Esahar, right? Not everyone's allowed to go up the mountain, Moshe could go as far as he goes, and Aaron, Nadav, and Avihu could all, and everyone could only go as far as they go. Like the awe and fear and the boundaries of Har Sinai were like copied over to the Mishkan, because the Shekhinah that appeared at Har Sinai now lives. That same Shekhinah got transferred and became institutionalized in the Mishkan. Right? So before Ma'amad Har Sinai, before Matan Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says an interesting pasuk, in the Parshas Yisrael, V'yisemli skula mikola amim, kili kola aretz. You're going to be my treasure. I'm skula. For all the earth is mine, meaning all the earth is mine, but nonetheless I treasure you. V'atem tili mamleches kohanim v'goy kadosh. You're also going to be a kingdom of nation, a kingdom of priests, and a holy nation. Right? Tzvei dinim, as we say. Right? Two different aspects to Am Yisrael that comes to fruition with Matan Torah. Am Skula and Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. Now, Bishlama, Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh, we understand what that means. We serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We work for Him. We do the mitzvahs and we do the avodah in the mikdash. It's Mamleches Kohanim. Goy Kadosh, we sanctify ourselves, through our mitzvahs. And and all the good deeds that we do to sanctify ourselves. So I understand that. We keep halacha. So that's keep the halachas. Mamleches kohanim v'goy kadosh. What's skula? V'yisemli skula mikola amim kili kola aretz. What's that aspect?
Hydra school is like a charm.
So that's a very good point. So Rav Kook points out that in the term skula in halacha means it works for no reason. As you say, a person is out to go out on Shabbos with a skula, like a kameo or something, like something that we know it works to keep you healthy. We don't know why. That's called a skula. Zgula is Am Yisrael has a relationship with God just because we have a relationship with God, not for any reason, not dependent on anything. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu just treasures us, just loves us because he loves us. No reason. That's Am Skula. That's the real chosen nation. Mamlechas Kohanim, we work for him. You know, there's like a, he's our master, we're his servant, and when you work for your master, just like you have a responsibility to serve him, he has a responsibility to give you your schar, right, for your service. Right? And there's that relation, there's that basis, and in that basis, if you're not a good servant, you're out. Right? But this thing called skula, there's no undoing skula because it's not. God just treasures us because he treasures us. And he chose us over all the goyim. Like Rashi says, Kili Kolaretz, I own the whole world. I could have had any nation I want, and I chose you anyway. That's skula. And you know what this has to do? This also is a way to understand something about this thing called the luchos habris, which, by the way, was what the Aron housed. The Aron, which we see a machlokas between Parshas Terumah and Parshas Vayakol, whether it was Mishkan and then Aron, or Aron and then Mishkan. The godless of the Aron, is that the luchos are there. Right? You ever wonder what the luchos were about? The luchos is not a kosher Sefer Torah. Right? It had, the luchos had the Aseres HaDibros in them. Right? What function did it serve? What function did the luchos habris serve?
Written contract?
Huh?
An early written contract?
Well, it's even more than that. Right? The pasuk says, "Kosveim al luchos libecha." Write them on the tablets of your heart. Right? The luchos represent the heart of Am Yisrael. But it's also, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also called our heart. Right? Surah Levavi, like that pasuk that the Medrash brings in this week's parsha. V'li be'er, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? Us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're linked in the heart. That's the madreg of Zgula. We're one heart. We're one heart. Just loves us because he just loves us, and it works both ways. We love him. Right? The idea of luchos habris, right? The luchos of the covenant, that there's a bris between us, and his luchos is that HaKadosh is just like engraved on our heart, and we're engraved on his heart, as it were.
So what happened, according to this, what happened with the first luchos?
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about that in Parshas Kisisa. But it wasn't game over because then it came a second luchos. Yeah, but we broke his heart, with Shuras HaLuchos. But okay, we'll talk about this. This, my Rebbe Moshe Shapir Shlita says, this is the reason why it's been the minhag in Klal Yisrael to draw luchos like this. Right? Even though there's no shita in Medrash, that's what they look like. No shita like that. Right? They're cubed. Right?
Interesting.
So he says because it's a heart. Lev. We draw them heart-shaped.
I always thought it came from the Charlton Heston movie.
Yeah, I know. That's when he gave us
I think it was even before that.
Yeah. He's saying he was saying it's not from the movie. But then when we were talking about it in Shir, some guy in the crowd said that they thought that he ripped it off. We ripped it off from Michelangelo.
Oh, that's how he has it?
Yeah, but Moshe was very angry. He said, it's even more ancient than that. Am Yisrael always drew luchos like that, but Surat Lev. Right? That's Segula. Just, we're engraved on his heart. Chorus al luchos. He's engraved on our heart. Just love each other. Just love each other. It's not totally in Maisa. Then there's Mamlechas Kohanim v'Goy Kodesh. It's totally in Maisa. Right? There's an aspect of the Mishkan that's done. God dwells with us, not because we serve Him, just dwells with us. Actually, the Medrash that we quoted before actually is really explaining. HaKadosh says, "Look, you got the Torah now. I got to live with you. I got to live with you." Right? Like the king who married off his daughter. I need you got to have a guest room for me wherever you are. 'Cause I can't live without my daughter. So of course we can't live without us now because we're bonded. Just B'mitzias is bonded to him because he gave us his Torah. The Shechat B'Sochim just lives with us because he lives with us because the Torah is on earth. This is all aside from the fact that we do the korbanos in the mikdash. Kosh Baruch Hu Shochen Isam. HaShochen Isam B'tol Tumasam. Even when we're tamei, he dwells within us. He's in our midst. Shechanti B'Sochim. Right? And then there's how we do the avodah to him.
So what's the function of Beis HaMikdash?
No, so it has both. Right? It has both. There's our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is dual. Right? There's the work, that we work for him, that we're oived, right? And then there's just the pure love, and that pure love is mutual between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just love each other. Right? And that's what the luchos are keneged. We're engraved on his heart, he's engraved on our heart. Right? All right. So now, the inyan of Gadol HaMitzvah V'Oiseh, Mimi She'eno Mitzvah V'Oiseh, right, is talking about Maisa, service. Right? Well, what's that Chazal talking about? What is that halacha? It's halacha, by the way, because we learn things out of it, as per the Gemara and Kiddushin. What's that Gemara talking about? A man shuklulav and a woman shuklulav. He's a mitzvah v'oiseh because he's chayv mitzvah saseh shazman grama. A woman's part from mitzvah saseh shazman grama. His mice is more chashuv than hers. Right? His mice is more chashuv than hers, right? Because for all the different reasons stated in the Rishonim, we'll just suffice with what the Ramchal says, that the one who has the tzivui has the power of God in this Maisa, because God himself told you to do it. So you're on a mission from God to do this thing. So there's you have tremendous authority and power when you're doing this mitzvah to rock the world, because God himself sent you to do it. So you're working with the power of God. Right? The Eino Mitzvah V'Oiseh never got the mission. Right? So it's nice that they want to do it, right? But it doesn't have the power, right, that the guy who has the mission has. But that Gemara is talking about Maisa. The Maisa of the Mitzvah V'Oiseh is more chashuv and more potent and rocks the world in a way that the Eino Mitzvah V'Oiseh doesn't. But it's talking about Maisa. Well, who's the better person? There's a difference. Deed done, and the power of the deed, the power of the accomplishment, right? And then there's the human being, just type of guy that he is, not what he did, the type of guy he is. Right, that Gemara which said Gadol Mitzvah is not saying that the Mitzvah is a better person. His deed is stronger if it's backed up with a real chiyuv in halacha, right? Because that means you got the mission. He who has the mission has the power to make a difference with this Maisa. But it's about the chashivas of the Maisa, right? It still remains true that a person who takes on mitzvahs voluntarily is a much nicer person, a much greater lover of God. That's true. That Gemara of saying Gadol Mitzvah is not negating that. Right? It's not negating that idea, because it's just saying that his Maisa is more chashuv than the Maisa of the Eino Mitzvah V'Oiseh. But the Eino Mitzvah V'Oiseh could very well be a bigger person. The fact that he's taking on mitzvahs voluntarily. Right? But as we're saying, the Mishkan has a duality to it. The Mishkan, the HaKadosh Hu dwells with us. He's with us. He's with us. There's two ofanim to how he's with us, right? He's with us. We serve him, right? And so when we were good, so we have more dveikus in him, and he reveals himself more. When we're bad, we know, God forbid, he withdraws, right? Hides himself from us. But that's one channel. There's another channel. There's a whole other channel that, we're just connected to God because He chose us. The act of choosing us was finalized by giving us the Torah. Just the Metzias that He gave us the Torah. Now we're just bonded to Him. We're just bonded, right? And that's inseverable. And that's an aspect of the Mishkan also. That Kodesh Baruch Hu is with us just because He's with us. The Mishkan embodies both, right? Yeah, so what's an expression of this? What's an expression of it in a Yid? We're talking about Kodesh Baruch Hu on His end, is that even if He's upset with us because we're not living up, He doesn't abandon us, right? Still with us no matter what on a certain level. As well as a part of the Mishkan that's always there, right? Where is it in the Adam? Where's the parallel in us? So everyone knows the famous halacha of koifinos so achioma rotzani. You could force a guy, if the halacha says he has to give a get, right? You could cattle prod him, if it's done, with by Beis Din Shel Yisrael, and halacha is really that way, and the person really exists, and it's not a sting operation from the FBI, right? It's a real person that really is chayv to give a get. So the Rambam explains this halacha that you could, beat him up until he says rotzani, because deep down every Jew wants to do what Hashem wants. Deep down, he wants. Every Jew loves God. Every Jew wants to do what Hashem wants. Just the Yetzer Hara interferes, makes static. But deep down in the heart, that's the Velibi air, right? And this is a Gemara. Gemara says, Am Yisrael says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribbon Shalom, Galu Yadu Fenecha, Shirotzaneinu Lasos Ritzaincha. God, we want to do what you want. What?
You just said.
No, yeah, but it's a Gemara. That's the Tzil Zaka is from later. It's post Talmudic, right? The Ritzaneinu Lasos Ritzaincha. We want to do what you want, but who gets in the way? Right, so, or Shabisa, the Yetzer Hara, and Shibud Malchus, which, by the way, alludes to Pesach and Purim. Sor Shabisa, Chametz. The Shibud Malchus, Golos. Purim, we're in Golos, and Chametz. Right, and Chametz. We're going to get into this in a second. Right, Purim and Pesach, which are back to back, are two countermeasures to Shibud Malchus, Purim. We're in Golos by Achashverosh. And Sor Shabisa, right? Pesach. So you get rid of the Sor Shabisa, right? So that we're going to discuss this. No, this is very deep, right? And this is why Purim and Pesach are two holidays that are only a month apart. There are two ways of overcoming this problem. And what's this problem? The problem is that there's a big gap between what a Jew has in his heart and what he actually does with his arms and legs. Every Jew wants to do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, deep down in his heart, right? Just the Yetzer Hara or the Golus gets in the way, and that causes us to, we don't live up to what we really believe and what we know we should. But every Jew deep down knows and believes, right? So there's just this gap between thought and action, intent and action, between the heart and between, the heart and the limbs, the arms and the legs. Right? Ani yeshena v'li be'er, even though I'm asleep, but the heart is still awake. We never stop loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Never stop wanting to do what He wants. Even though your arms and legs, that's what happens when you're asleep. The heart is still awake, but your arms and legs don't do anything useful. Meaning you're not being Ovid HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're not serving Him. But not serving Him is is because the Ratzon, to do Ratzon Hashem, which is perpetually there, just doesn't break through. It's blocked by the Yetzer Hara. It's blocked by the influence that the Goyim have on us, as a result of the Golus. Right? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Shochen B'Sochenu. Right? Both by virtue of the fact that we serve Him, but even when we don't serve Him, by the fact that we have the inner Ratzon to do what He wants. It's the connection of the heart, as opposed to a connection of the action, the service. Right? So now you can understand that there's not one extra word in the Torah. Right? And Terumah and Tetzaveh and V'Yakov Pekudei are both necessary parshas, even though they're repeated verbatim. because Terumah Tetzaveh is talking of, what's the context of Terumah and Tetzaveh? Right, is that the Mishkan is being set over conceptually. Moshe Rabbeinu is in Shemayim right now. He had gone up to Shemayim, right? And of course, when Shemayim is telling him, listen, this is the way I want it done. It's plans. It's ideas. Machshava. Heart. Vayako Pekude is the actual building of the Mishkan. Moshe Rabbeinu was telling to the people, this is what we're doing. And then Betzalel steps in, and then they start actually building. The context is Maisa. The Mishkan exists on two levels. It exists b'machshava and exists b'maisa. In a sense, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is connected to us mitzad our hearts, and He's connected to us mitzad what we do. We have both relations with HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Still, why change the order, though?
Oh, very good.
Because the person can't comprehend the Mishkan?
No. Because that's the point. Machshava and Maisa are reciprocals of each other. Sof Maisa, the Machshava Tchila. And this is actually a Ramban in this week's Parsha. The Goyim in his Chidushei Agoros on that Gemara and Brachas expands it more. Says beautiful. And with this we could go back to this Gemara and understand that the Gemara, everyone's telling the truth. Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the truth. Betzalel is telling the truth. As per Terumah is true, and Vayakol is true, right, as far as the order. Sof, what does it mean? Sof Maisa b'machshava tchila. Sof Maisa b'machshava tchila. Why is that true? Last in action is first in thought, because the first thing you think of is the goal, and then you figure out how to get there. In the thought process, the first thing you have in mind is the goal, because if you don't have a goal, you don't get out of bed, right? Right.
But first you build it, and then you realize what you did wrong.
No,
You
that's
gotta
not
go
the way to
back
do it.
and replan again.
No, don't do it. No, that's not good. Don't do it that way. The way is to have the goal in mind, goal setting, right, and then now figure out how to get there. That's the way the thought process works. Planning. Planning is always the goal. Let's say you have to do. You first, I got to get to the trade show. Okay, now we'll figure out. We'll do it, and we got to catch. We'll get those restaurants on the way, right? Right?
We didn't even go to all of them. We went only to one of them.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, there you go. But the goal was to get to the trade show, right? You wouldn't have gotten done. The whole process started with the goal in mind. Goal is the first thing in thought. That's what you self-mind. What you reach at the end of the physical process is actually the first thing that occurs to you when you're planning it out, and that's the whole impetus. That's the whole stimulus to make the whole plan, because you see the goal, you envision the goal. Now, anyone who does anything first sees the goal before he does it in his mind.
So it's Weizar Kasha. Why is Mishkan last? Even in the Machshava phase?
No, because what's the ikar of the Mishkan? The ikar of the Mishkan, the goal, is v'no'adati l'chasham. I'm going to meet you there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu meets us on top of the Aron. After the Mishkan got built, Moshe Rabbeinu gets his nevuah from on top bein shnei akruvim. That was the goal. The v'shachanti b'socham is accomplished with the Aron that holds the luchas. That's the connection. The ikar connection is the Aron. Right? Of the Mishkan, the ikar is the Aron, because that's where that's where as where the Shechina rests, mamish, on top of the Aron, right? In the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So in thought, the goal is first. So in Terumah, right? Aron. And then, okay, Mishkan and Kalim, because that's the way in planning, that's the way it works. You first goal, and then you reverse engineer how to get to that goal, right, or how to enhance that goal. In Maisa, of course, the ikar comes at the end, because you reach the goal at the end, when in the realm of Maisa, right? Terumah Tetzaveh is the Mishkan b'machshava, the Mishkan in the heart. The Mishkan exists, on a thought level, right? On a thought level, on a commitment level, on a heart level. And that's the secret, that the Mishkan had to be built by Nedivu slave. Because if it would all be just, no Nedivu slave, everyone do what you're told. There was a mandatory tax, right? The Mishkan had to be an expression of the Nedivu slave. The Mishkan had to be an expression of how we love HaKadosh Baruch Hu and He just loves us. So the Mishkan was built on the Nedivu slave because there's that's a whole nother plane of a Shachanti B'Socham that HaKadosh was called Tzur Levavi, the rock of my heart. Right? That, Visem Lizgula, that needed expression. And that's why the Mishkan had to be built in the Nedivu slave. That's V'li Bi'er. If it would have been just a mandatory tax, no one would care what you're feeling. It's a tax, man. Got to pay your taxes, whether you love the king or not. You got to pay the king, right? There had to be an opportunity to give expression of Nedivu slave because of that dimension of it, the thought dimension, right? The dimension HaKadosh Baruch Hu always dwells in our hearts. We're always on His mind. He's always on our mind. Deep down in the heart. That needed expression. So that had to be Nedivu slave.
So the people who didn't give a Nedivu slave don't have that expression now? They lost
bad.
it out.
Oh, yeah.
Or they didn't get, they only
No,
gave the shekel?
I wasn't there. Look, I don't know. I don't know.
It'll be a double-sided coin.
Yes. Look, I wasn't there. I imagine everyone did something, the Nedivu slave, because no one was told what to give, so everyone gave something, I hope, right? I would imagine, or at least a critical amount of the Jews that should be called that the Jewish people collectively love God. Right, so Terumah Tetzav is connected to Mishkan b'machshava. That's the whole context of it, and that's why that's the din of Nedivu slave. We just love God. God is just on our mind, and that had to have expression that the Mishkan should be built out of love, out of Nedivu slave. Right, and then so Parshas Terumah is connected that whole bechina. Right, V'Yakov Pekude is connected how the Mishkan got built l'maisa, and in Maisa, right, the goal comes last. So first the house, and then the Aron. Right, the Aron is still mentioned first because it's the ikar of the Kalim, but it's first Mishkan and then Kalim. And that's what Betzal argued. Listen, b'mnoihag sheba'olam. The minhag of that world is you first build house by Kalim. Meaning we're now in the world of Maisa, and in the world of Maisa, right. Moshe's machshava, Betzalel's Maisa. Right? And this is an amazing thing. Of course, Moshe Rabbeinu was told both ways by God, because the Mishkan is this dual existence, that's b'machshava and b'maisa, right? So he was told both ways. Now, of course, for Moshe Rabbeinu, the ikar is the conceptual way, because he lives in that world, the world of machshava. Now, the man visits Shemaim, where there's no mitzvahs up there. Moshe Rabbeinu, would represent the machshava of the Mishkan. Betzalel would be the one that would build it l'maisa, be the architect, the practical guy. But Moshe Rabbeinu, who heard it both ways from God. He heard it the Terumah Tetzava way. He heard it the V'Yakov Pekude way. So now you might think he should just tell Betzalel to do it the V'Yakov Pekude way, because that's his job, to build it l'maisa. But Moshe Rabbeinu wants Betzalel to be aware that this Mishkan that you're building on earth has a thought dimension to it. Right? You think you're just building a house, and Kalim, it looks like this, and the Kalim look like that, and that's all there is to them. What the eye sees, this Mishkan that you're building exists on a whole nother plane. It exists, conceptually. And that's the side of Mikdash Shalmata Mechuvan Keneged Mikdash Shalmata. There's a base of Mikdash in every realm. And this base of Mikdash on earth ties into it, because this base and belongs to it. It's like all the Batei Mikdashos of all the Olamas are exactly superimposed one on top of another. They're all in the point of center of each, and the center of all the Olamas is the same center. They're all superimposed on each other. This Mishkan you're building on earth has dimensions of it in Shamayim, has dimensions, parallel dimensions to it in every Olam and Olam. And why? Because not just the place where we do Avodah. It exists in the heart. It exists in the realm of thought, which means it has a spiritual existence, not just a physical existence. And that's how it taps into a Beis Mikdash Mala. Right? A Beis Mikdash where there's no animals to sacrifice.
So
It's all mechuvet.
back to here to be able to sacrifice animals.
What?
It has to be tied down here. Besides for that, to also be able to sacrifice.
Right, to have the avodah,
has the physical
but
element of it.
of course, and yes, it's both are true, both are true, and he wanted Bitzal to realize that, and that's why he told him the Terumah Tetzava way first, to get him thinking. Yeah, but it's not practical. Okay, it's okay, Bitzal. So what's the answer? And then he says, "Oh, you figured it out. You chopped." I mean, most people didn't,
Just playing along. He's like playing.
He played Betzalel. When he said Hafach doesn't mean he said something that God didn't say. He told him, but he was supposed to tell Betzalel the Vayakol Pekude way. He didn't want to do it immediately. He wanted to first tell him the Terumah Tetzava way, to make him aware that the Mishkan you're building on earth has a whole other dimension to it in thought, and in Ruchnius. Right, Mechumen Keneged Beis Hamikdash Shomala. Right, it's cross-dimensional, and what makes it cross-dimensional is the fact that there's this other aspect of it of Nedivu slave, of just some V'yisam Liskula, of Stam Ritzonenu Lasos Ritzoncha, another just aspect of why God just dwells in us, right? And so he wanted Betzalel to hear it first, and then Betzalel says, but still, it's not practical. So he said, okay, so what's the answer, Betzalel? So he says, well, is there maybe more? And that's what he said. He's not saying, I figured out by myself. He's saying, perhaps God told you also Mishkan, or that's right. He told me that also.
He didn't.
He didn't? What do you think, Vayakol Pekude guy?
Oh, that was.
That was the other way of doing it.
So the way Ruben goes that Betzalel says, you got another nevuah, right? You got an additional one. Perhaps God also told you Mishkan, Aron and Kelim, for the practical realm, for the Olam of Maisa. So Moshe says, brilliant, Betzelka, you're in the shadow of God. Says the Goin, an amazing word. The shadow follows the prime object, right? Me and my shadow, except in reverse. When you raise your right hand, which hand does your shadow raise?
Left.
The left. Don't you understand? The prime object and the shadow is a machshava maisa relationship, right? The maisa should follow the machshava, right? Hopefully, right? Ideally, your maisim should reflect your machshavas. But we learned, we just mentioned, right, that in machshava everything is last is first and first is last, right? The opposite of maisa. So the maisa goes in tandem with your machshava, just in reverse. Right? You raise your right hand, the shadow raises the left hand. You get it? You're Betzel Kel. You're my shadow. You're the shadow of God. I told you the way of Terumah Tetzava, the way which is Iker conceptually. And you, who's the practical guy, the Maisa is the shadow of the Machshava. It should follow the Machshava, like the shadow follows the person, just in reverse. That what's Sof Maisa is B'Machshava Tchila. But you're a good shadow, and that's your wisdom. You know how to be a good shadow. To shadow the machshava elyoina in the practical realm.
So what's shot that it's so many parshas after?
Okay, we're not going to finish all this in one night. We are now opening a sugya that we're going to talk about at length, week in, week out, all the parshas straight through.
So
right?
The fact that they're the different parshas is a time to reflect upon what you understood and be able to go back and understand it?
Well, no, because Cheda Ego's in between, representing the gap that comes between Machshava and Maisa.
It's not even in chronological order. Technically, this was only given after Cheda Ego. Really.
Right, correct. It's not in chronological order, but it's to teach you this message. Cheda Ego is what's in between, and that's the message in this week's parsha. Ani Yeshena mi Maisa Ego. But V'li Bi'er, Koshel still says, Vikli Terumah, Kol Ish Asher Yidveno Libo. That's called V'li Bi'er. Yidveno Libo. The heart is still awake. We fail in Maisa. Like the Kuzri says, the Ikar failure of Cheda Ego was not apikorsus. They believed in God. They just wanted to, they just were miyayish that Moshe Rabbeinu is not coming back. And he was supposed to give them plans for a Mishkan. And they thought he died. So they took matters into their own hands, and the ego was supposed to be like their own idea of a Mishkan. Right? Their own idea, but they were wrong. But it was called a failure in Maisa, not a failure in Machshava. not a failure in their faith in God. They still believed in God. That's the Kuzri's approach.
Really?
They still believed in God.
I thought the Medrash said that it's like two, like right after the chuppah, it was already.
Okay, I'm just saying this is the Kuzri's approach. But we could work out the other approaches also. But the Kuzri is just easier to fit into what we're saying. That it was a failure in Maisa. They thought if you do it l'shem shemaim, it's mutter. But they were wrong. It's not doing l'shem shemaim that's mutter to make a pesel. It's the tzivui to make the Mishkan that makes it mutter. Otherwise, it's a pesel. Right, but they thought that it's mutter as long as you do it l'shem shemaim.
The Mishkan itself is a pesel.
That's right.
That has a tzivui in it.
Right, but they made a lumdisha mistake. They thought that what makes the Mishkan mutter is the fact that it's done l'shem shemaim. So they made the egel l'shem shemaim, but that was a tos. Right, they were still over on lo ta'asel chapesel, but they were not over on lo echol himacherim. They still believed in the one God. Just they were over on lo ta'asel chapesel. It was a failure in Maisa. And even though, so it's ani yeshena, you're asleep. But v'li bi'er, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu still says, kol yeshid veno libo. Because even though in Maisa we did tremendous damage to ourselves and all the olamas with the cheda ego, in Maisa, in the Maisa realm, and Chazal tell us, Rashi, I believe Rashi is going to bring it when we get there in Parshas Kisisa, there's no Puranius that comes to the world that doesn't have a little bit of payback for the cheda ego. We're still paying it back. Did tremendous damage, but in the Maisa level. But on the commitment level, on the love level, the love that's beyond the Maisa, the heart, Libi air, and there's Vikli Truma of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to dwell in us, despite the fact that we did Ched Ego. But let's go out because V'libi air, and it's called Sher Yidveno Libo. So now the amazing thing is, in a regular year, now I'm just tantalizing you now, because this year it's on a higher level. But in a regular year, Truma Tetzaveh is read in Adar. Right? Like now. Just, and Vayakol Pekude is read. Vayakol Pekude is always Parshas HaChodesh, when we bench Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is very apropos because in what month was the Mishkan actually built, actually open for business? Open for business? Nisan, exactly. And that's just between Purim and Pesach. Purim was, the whole Geula was only in Machshava. Because Akati Avdi Achashverosh, we're still Avodim Achashverosh. On the outside level, on the Maisa level, we're still in Gauls. The whole Hischadshus was, everyone realized in their heart, there was a big miracle here. Wow. But on the outside, Akati Avdi Achashverosh. Mitzrayim wasn't that. Nisan is Lemaisa getting out of Gauls. And that's why in Nisan, Lemaisa, the Mishkan was built. So Truma Tetzavas Keneged Ador, and says the Chirushrim, I'll repeat the medrash that we quoted for this week's parsha. Aso kitun echad va'odur betocho. Odur, miloshen ador. That Ador and Purim is all about the Mishkan in the heart. That even though we were in Golus, and even though Esther was in the Beis Achashverosh, Esther represents the Shechina. The Shechina was still there with us, dwelling with us in Beis Achashverosh. Bayom Hashishi vatilbash Esther Malchus. So what does Chazal say? Vatilbash Esther, love Ruach HaKodesh. Love Ruach HaKodesh was chal on her on that third day when she went into Achashverosh. Love Ruach HaKodesh and Kaidu al Pisoid, but Malchus, Vatul Bash Esther Malchus, Ruach HaKodesh, the midah of Malchus is Shechina. The Shechina was with us even in Golus. V'shachanti b'socha manei Hashem betoch tumasa. The Shechina was with us in Machshava. The aspect of how we take God with us wherever we are. He's with us in our hearts. The Mishkan b'machshava, the Truma Tetzaveh aspect of the Mishkan. That's what Adar is about. That even when we're in Golus and and under Achashverosh, right? He's there with us secretively. He's there in our heart.
You can say even though the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed at that time.
Yes.
It's always being Megala that the Mishkan was just tafel to the Aron itself. He's saying that
the Aron didn't get destroyed. The Aron got hidden.
Got hidden, right.
Right, that's very good. That's good. There was no Churban Aron.
The Mishkan was just it was like a Heicha Timsa just for the Aron, really.
Right, correct. And the Aron wasn't Nechrab, it was Nignas.
That's what I was about to say before.
It's hidden, just like God's hidden in our heart. There was Churban Abayis, it wasn't Churban Aron. The Aron was Nignas.
Right. It's like there's two.
It's hidden. And that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu hiddenly still dwells amongst us, and that's what Purim revealed. He didn't never abandon us. He still dwells with us even there. Even in Beis Achashverosh, the Shechina's there. In Beis Achashverosh, manipulating everybody. Like Esther's throwing them around. And so Terumah Tetzav is Marsh Keneged Ador. Ador B'tocho. I'm going to dwell with you no matter what. And that's what Haman said about the Yidden. Yeshno am echad mafuzor maforbam. So Chazal says, it's Gemara Megillah, yeshno atkar yeshno ela yoshnu am echad. They're asleep. They're not doing mitzvahs. So king, we don't got to be afraid of them because they're not doing their mitzvahs anyway. So, but yoshnu am echad, ani yeshena. But what Haman didn't know is v'libi air. The heart is awake. And Ami so did tshuva me'ahava. Tshuva me'ahava as opposed to Yom Kippur, which is tshuva me'ira. Purim Kaidu is tshuva me'ahava, out of love, pure love of God, right? The v'libi air, and how there's a connection to the Shechina, always. There's a certain Mishkan that's indestructible. Mitzad the v'libi air, that's the Gili of Adar, and that's why we read Terumah Tetzav in Adar, right? As opposed to V'akol Pekudah, that's connected to Mishkan in Lamaisa, right? And that's on the border of Nisan. However, this year, where it's a leap year, we're going to even read Vayakol Pekudah during Adar. So it's because we're on a higher level during a leap year. But I'm leaving that for next week.
Stay tuned.